The newswire gets a lot of hate. Be wary of people that just use it as the one-stop shops. That should never be the way. It's true, I don't hate the newswire, and this is why you shouldn't either. The newswire gets a lot of hate. People think it's pay-to-play, guaranteed coverage, plus it's really expensive. But there is a case in point of when to use a newswire, and I'm going to walk you through it today. Hello, I'm Katie, CEO and founder of Maybe Agency. We are bringing to you today Maybe Pod. This is our open countercultural PR playbook, showing you one episode at a time how to use and understand PR effectively. And we are so glad that you've joined us today talking about the newswire. And let's go all the way back to the beginning. What is the newswire? Where does it fit in the world of public relations? Essentially, a newswire is a service that's provided by a range of different companies that distributes news stories and press releases to a wide variety of outlets, and in some cases guarantees coverage. So journalists subscribe to the newswire. It also goes across a number of trade and media publications. And this model is often referred to in the industry as kind of pay to play or paid placement. It's not like advertising or marketing, but it's a way that you can get your story on a wire that's seen by journalists in a specific region or worldwide. And as I said, almost guaranteed coverage. Some of the news sites are not very reputable, so you're getting a very high level of clips with, in some cases, low quality. People also refer to it as lazy public relations, kind of like pay to placement instead of tailored pitching, where you really look at the publications and different journalists that you want to reach with your story. The other thing a newswire does is it does save you time. So it allows you as an organization not to have to search for every journalist and every publication that you want to reach. This is particularly important if you're an international or global organization, or you have a story that's relevant for global media. You don't have to go through all that manual time of finding each and every journalist that you want to pitch to. You can get your news out on the newswire that's relevant to journalists that subscribe to it, and the key publications maybe in your target industry, region, or sector that need to know about the news. So it saves a lot of time. You can reach a very high volume of people in a very fast manner. So there is a lot of hate for the newswire, but there is a place for it in international public relations. Why so much hate? Well, a lot of people think that the newswire is outdated, it's extremely expensive, and as I mentioned before, it can be ineffective because you're essentially getting a high volume of clips and maybe a low quality. So take, for example, you're pitching to the construction industry, your story. Your story would show up through the newswire on specific industry websites that may not have a high level of readership at all. So you're getting a quantity of clips within the construction industry that you've targeted, but they may not be high quality. And then it comes down to, well, what is the KPI we're looking at? Is it quality, quantity, or both? This is why a lot of people don't like the newswire, because they're wanting quality instead of just quantity. But I think there's an argument that you can balance both. And actually, in a lot of cases, you need both quality and quantity in pickup with your public relations. Then you've got the flip side of journalists. So there's a lot of journalists that would subscribe to some of these newswires, and a lot that consider them to be just full of spam and very generic. Also, if your organization is hiring an agency, you've got to be careful of this, because the newswire can be extremely expensive for the return on investment. And you want to make sure that your retainer is going to quality coverage with the agency that you're using, and that they're not just using the newswire in a lazy way to gain X amount of hits for your press release pitching. That's really where I've seen it used by agencies in the wrong way. But there is a strategic way that you can use the newswire in conjunction with your other organic pitching that increases the reach, the quality, and the quantity of your media pickup. Another reason people hate the newswire is that it guarantees distribution, but it doesn't guarantee journalist coverage. It can be ineffective because there's a low return on investment for the amount that you've paid to get it onto the wire, to the number of clips in some cases that you receive, or the quality of clips that you receive. So that's why there's a lot of hate for the newswire, and this is something that you've got to also be well aware of, especially if you're hiring an agency, that they're not using the newswire in a very lazy way. And a lot of agencies do it with smoke and mirrors for their clients. Make sure you avoid that. How to use the newswire though? What are the positives? Well, many public relations agencies, as I said, use the newswire as a tool and as an accompaniment to organic pitching. It does have the ability to reach a very wide targeted audience in a very short time span. It increases visibility. It does, in some cases, increase credibility. Some of these newswires, for example, PR Newswire, one of the most credible in the industry globally. So not all newswires, I will say, are created equal. If you're going to use one, you've also got to use the right one. Make sure it's reputable. And as we discussed before, there's a lot of pros. So it saves you time on manual outreach. You can achieve a broader reach by distributing to multiple outlets simultaneously. This is particularly helpful if you've got a global pitch. And you can enhance brand credibility through broad syndication. The number of clips you receive is not always a bad thing. It can be a great reputational boost for your organization and your story. The other thing I like about the Newswire is they provide data for analytics and they can greatly boost your SEO. So we use them at Maybe Agency in specific cases. How do we use them? We use the Newswire to complement quality coverage with quantity. You can choose newswires by region. For example, for one of our clients, we used the US Newswire and got 600 clips for a story that we put out in tandem with organic pitching. And the organic pitching resulted in 25 to 30 feature stories for this particular story. So the quality coverage, those 25 to 30 pieces were tier 1 coverage that were global, very high quality, very important for the client. But the Newswire element also added to the quantity. And we know the publications that picked it up on that Newswire were reputable. But it also means that you come out of your pitching with 25 to 30 great feature articles, tier 1 publication that's really going to make the client happy, but also you've had broader distribution, quantity coverage. And you're getting a span across a variety of different publications. So again, this varies by target industry, sector, and region, but it's making sure that you target the tier 1 with the quality, and then the quantity may span, as I said, 600, 700, 1,000 clips in different publications in your target industry or region. So complementing quality with quantity. And this is the thing, it actually depends on the organization you're working with, because some have a greater emphasis on wanting quantity and some have a greater emphasis on wanting quality. And you may be an organization watching yourself today, learning about PR here on Maybe Pod and thinking about, well, what KPI should I go for? It all really depends on the organization, and it can depend per press release. If you want to gain the tier 1 coverage and you're happier with a lower amount of pickups, you might focus more on organic pitching. But in some cases, and with some of the clients that we work with, they're bigger international organizations, they want this balance of quality and quantity to show that they're getting quality coverage and they're reaching multiple publications to reach target stakeholders. The next reason I love the Newswire is specifically for international organizations. The Newswire allows you to reach the world. I often use the Newswire for those organizations that need global coverage of a news story. And I will use it in tandem with local pitching and a global approach. What do I mean by this? Let me give you a clear example. So we managed the public relations for the ISO annual meeting, which was held last year in Rwanda. One of the pieces we launched was the very first biodiversity standard. It was relevant for the event that was taking place in Rwanda, so we did local organic outreach. But the launch of the world's first biodiversity standard is important globally. So we used the Newswire to complement that organic pitching and made sure that the story reached multiple target publications and outlets in regions all around the world. So you have the local organic approach, but then the Newswire allows you to reach the world, and often they'll do translations. So in this case, we wanted English, Spanish, and French, and we ensured that the story was able to hit multiple outlets simultaneously through the use of the Newswire globally. So we had a great local approach, quality coverage, coupled with great international approach, quality coverage, but also quantity provided by the Newswire. Important for local organizations, but as you can see, more important for global organizations is utilizing the Newswire in the right way. The other reason I don't hate the Newswire is, as much as journalists complain about it being a spam inbox, there are some who still use it, who read the Newswire and who scan through it to pick up ideas and stories. You can't rule it out in terms of it being a place where a journalist will pick up a great idea for a piece. And it brings you brand credibility, particularly if you're associated with a newswire like PR Newswire or one of the leading newswires, that your story has clout, that it's relevant internationally, and that journalists who are scanning the Newswire should take note of it. So there's pros and cons, there's some haters, there's some lovers. This is why I don't hate the Newswire and the way that you can strategically use it in your public relations approach. But remember, you have to be careful. You have to know what your KPIs are. You have to use the PR Newswire strategically, particularly because it's expensive, but you've also got to use it in a way that will complement your organic pitching. Be wary of people that just use it as the one-stop shop for how they operate public relations. That should never be the way. That is how to not use the Newswire, and it's a very big spam approach and a lazy approach, but it can be used strategically to help your clients. We've done it over 20 years. There is a way you can use the Newswire. It definitely isn't dead. So I hope you've learned something today about the Newswire, how you might utilize it or not for your next big press release. My name is Katie Clift. As I said at the top, I'm CEO and founder of international public relations agency Maybe. Very pleased to be bringing you weekly episodes of Maybe Pod. Can't wait to see you next time. And I'm really excited for next week. We're going to be talking about building up your confidence in dealing with the media. So tune in wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode of Maybe Pod. Bye for now.